Now, I know what you are thinking, but Matilda, don't I already know to avoid things like candy, soda, and cookies? And you'd be absolutely right. Those are the most obvious offenders when it comes to refined carbs and added sugars. But as you're about to discover, the carb conundrum extends far beyond the usual suspects. In fact, some of the healthier options you might be turning to could be sabotaging your low-carb efforts without you even realizing it. Do watch till the end, as we will uncover the hidden carb culprits that could be keeping you from achieving your low-carb goals. And if you like this video, do give us a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Without further ado, let's get started. Let's start with the low-hanging fruit, shall we? The sugary foods and drinks that are so obviously high in carbs that it almost feels silly to mention them. But bear with me, I want to make sure we've covered all the bases. We're talking about the usual suspects here: candy, cookies, cakes, donuts, and the like. These are the kinds of treats that are basically pure refined carbs and added sugars, offering little to no nutritional value. And the same goes for those sweet, sugar-sweetened beverages like soda, sports drinks, and energy drinks. Now, I know it might be tempting to indulge in this from time to time, but if you're serious about sticking to a low-carb lifestyle, they've got to go. Remember, the average can of soda packs in over 9 teaspoons of sugar. That's more than enough to derail your hard-earned progress. But here's the thing. The battle against carbs doesn't end with the obvious culprits. Nope, there are plenty of other places where those sneaky carbs are hiding, just waiting to sabotage your low-carb efforts. Yes, the classic case of carb camouflage. You'd think that a little squirt of sauce or a drizzle of dressing wouldn't do much harm, right? Well, think again, my friends. Some of the most common offenders in this category are things like ketchup, barbecue sauce, teriyaki sauce, and hoisin sauce. Sure, they might not taste explicitly sweet, but don't be fooled. These sauces can be absolute sugar bombs in disguise. And it's not just the obviously sweet sauces you have to watch out for. Even those seemingly innocent options like tomato sauce and bolognese can be loaded with hidden sugars, all in the name of boosting flavor. But it's not just sauces. Salad dressings can also be a sneaky source of carbs, especially the pre-made varieties you find in the grocery store. Those low-fat options? Yeah, they're often packed with sugar to make up for the lack of flavor. So, the next time you're reaching for a sauce or dressing, take a moment to flip that bottle over and check the nutrition label. You might be surprised by just how many carbs are hiding in there. Speaking of those low-fat options, this brings me to my next point. Be wary of any products that are marketed as healthy or low-fat, because when the fat is removed, you know what food manufacturers tend to add in to make up for the lost flavor? Yep, you guessed it, sugar. It's a classic bait-and-switch tactic, and one that often catches unsuspecting low-carb dieters off guard. Take yogurt for example. Those supposedly healthy low-fat varieties, they're often loaded with added sugars to compensate for the missing fat. Your best bet? Stick with the full-fat natural versions. Not only will they taste infinitely better, but you'll be avoiding that sneaky sugar spike that can derail your low-carb progress. Okay, so we've covered the obvious sugary culprits and the more deceptive sauces and low-fat products. But what about those natural sweeteners that seem so innocent? Things like honey, maple syrup, and coconut sugar may have a more natural and unrefined image, but the truth is, they're still high in carbs and should be treated with caution on a low-carb diet. Just because they're natural doesn't mean they're low-carb friendly. And let's not forget about the often touted healthy fruit. While it's true that fruits contain natural sugars, the carb content can vary widely. Some, like bananas and pineapples, are absolute carb bombs, while others, like berries, are much more low-carb friendly. The same goes for fruit juices and smoothies. They may seem like a healthier option, but the rapid influx of fruit sugars can quickly sabotage your low-carb efforts. In fact, a single serving of apple juice can contain the same amount of sugar as a can of soda. So, the next time you're tempted to reach for that natural sweetener or indulge in a fruity beverage, take a moment to pause and consider the impact it could have on your low-carb journey. The world of grains and cereals, a minefield of carbohydrates that low-carb dieters have to navigate with extreme caution. And it's not just the obvious culprits like white bread and sugary breakfast cereals that you have to watch out for. You see, even those healthier whole grain options can be surprisingly high in carbs. Take bread for example. A single slice of whole grain bread may have fewer carbs than its white counterpart, but 2 slices still add up to a hefty carb load. The same goes for those supposedly virtuous breakfast choices like oatmeal, muesli, and porridge. Sure, they may be marketed as nutritious, but at the end of the day, they're still grains, and grains are inherently high in carbohydrates. And let's not forget about that starchy vegetable masquerading as a grain, sweet corn. With its sweet flavor and starchy texture, it's easy to forget that corn is essentially just another carb-heavy grain in disguise. So, if you're serious about sticking to a low-carb lifestyle, it's time to bid farewell to the majority of grains and cereals, even the healthy ones. Your best bet? Focus on low-carb, nutrient-dense alternatives that won't sabotage your progress. Speaking of grains, let's talk about the growing popularity of gluten-free products. Now, I know a lot of people assume that just because something is gluten-free, it must be low-carb, but that's not always the case. In fact, many gluten-free products actually contain just as many, if not more, carbohydrates than their gluten-containing counterparts. The manufacturers often have to use alternative flours and starches to replicate the texture and mouthfeel of traditional wheat-based products, and those ingredients can be just as high in carbs. So if you're trying to follow a low-carb diet, don't let the gluten-free label lull you into a false sense of security. Take the time to read those nutrition labels and make sure you're not inadvertently loading up on carbs in the name of avoiding gluten. Okay, let's move on to another carb-heavy category that often catches people off guard: starchy vegetables. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Matilda, aren't vegetables supposed to be healthy and low-carb? And you'd be absolutely right for the most part. However, there are a few starchy vegetables that you want to steer clear of on a low-carb diet. The usual suspect is the humble potato, but you'll also want to be wary of sweet potatoes, parsnips, and even that seemingly innocuous root vegetable, cassava, also known as yuca or tapioca. These starchy veggies can pack a serious carb punch with a single serving of potatoes containing the equivalent of 9 teaspoons of sugar. That's more than enough to send your blood sugar soaring and derail your low-carb progress. So, while you may be tempted to lean on these healthier vegetable options, it's important to keep an eye on their carb content and enjoy them in moderation, if at all, on your low-carb journey. Alright, let's move on to another group of foods that can be tricky to navigate on a low-carb diet: legumes and pseudograins. Now, legumes, which include beans, lentils, and peas, are generally a pretty nutrient-dense option, but the carb content can vary quite a bit, with some varieties being much higher in carbs than others. Chickpeas, for example, are relatively high in carbs compared to more low-carb friendly options like green beans or snow peas. And then there are the pseudograins like quinoa, buckwheat, and wild rice. While they may be marketed as healthier alternatives to traditional grains, the truth is they're still relatively high in carbohydrates and should be approached with caution on a low-carb diet. So, if you're looking to maximize your low-carb efforts, it's best to limit your intake of legumes and pseudograins, or at the very least, choose the lower-carb varieties when you do indulge. Now, here's one that might surprise you: cashew nuts. That's right, these creamy little nuts, which are often touted as a healthy snack option, can actually be a bit of a problem for low-carb dieters. You see, while most nuts are relatively low in carbs, cashews are the exception to the rule. They contain 3 to 5 times the amount of carbohydrates compared to other nut varieties. And the fact that they're so easy to overeat can make them a real stumbling block on your low-carb journey. So, if you're a self-proclaimed nut lover, you might want to consider swapping out those cashews for lower-carb options like almonds, walnuts, or pecans. Your waistline and your low-carb progress will thank you. Alright, let's talk about another potentially problematic ingredient for low-carb dieters: milk. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Matilda, milk is healthy, right? Well, that depends on your body type and how pure the milk is. Another thing is, milk contains a type of sugar called lactose, and that can be a bit of an issue on a low-carb diet. You see, lactose is a disaccharide, which means it's made up of two smaller sugar molecules, glucose and galactose. And when the lactose gets broken down in your body, it's rapidly converted into glucose, sending your blood sugar levels soaring. So if you're a big milk drinker, whether it's in your coffee, your cereal, or just on its own, you'll want to be mindful of that carb content. And as with everything, your best bet is to stick with the full fat versions, as you'll need less of it to achieve the same effect. Last but certainly not least, let's talk about that beloved adult beverage, beer. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Matilda, I thought you said alcohol was off limits on a low-carb diet? And you're not wrong, but beer in particular is a bit of a special case. You see, beer is often referred to as liquid bread for a reason. It's chock full of carbohydrates. Now, there are low-carb beer options out there, but let's be honest, they're not exactly known for their delectable taste. So if you're serious about sticking to a low-carb lifestyle, you might want to consider ditching beer. Your waistline will thank you. Phew, that was a lot of information to unpack, wasn't it? I know it can feel like there's a never-ending list of carb-laden foods and drinks to avoid, but don't worry, my fellow carb-conscious friends, you've got this. The key is to approach this journey with a sense of curiosity and an open mind. Experiment with new low-carb recipes, explore alternative ingredients, and don't be afraid to ask questions and seek guidance from your healthcare team. Remember, this isn't about deprivation, it's about finding a sustainable way of eating that makes you feel your absolute best. And who knows, you might just discover some new favorite low-carb gems along the way. So, tell me, what's the one food or drink on this list that surprised you the most? Comment below. If you enjoyed this video, do like and share this video so that more people will learn about these high-carb foods to avoid when on a low-carb diet. Check out this playlist of my top 10 videos of health tips for women, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.